believe in giving energy and receiving energy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You guys can do better than that. All right, I believe in giving energy and receiving energy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, everyone's still on their computers. We're going to try one more time, and I want to see if I can get your eye contact, at least for this portion of the seminar, that we're connected, yeah? So I believe in giving energy and receiving energy. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, now we're all here. Fantastic. Good. So I've been actually, like last night was a little bit like Christmas Eve. You know, I felt so excited to be here with you. I have so many good memories of this department, and I knew that the students that are here and the faculty that are here, you're doing really significant things that are, you may not even realize how important they are. So it's so fun to see Dr. Yanchar here. He's definitely one of my favorite faculty members. When I first attended his class, I remember the chair of the department at the time, Dr. Russ Osmthorpe, came in on the very first day of class and said, I don't know if you're going to learn anything about specifically what he's teaching, but what I want you to learn is how this man thinks. And he shared with us, I don't know if he shared at that time, but at one point, just in some email communication with the university, Dr. Yanchar just says something about what he thought that university was about. And they emailed him back and said, you know, actually, can we use this as our university, what was it, their motto or slogan or mission statement?
I really don't remember the story at all.
He
Zero recollection.
knows so many significant things, it's hard to capture it all. But yeah, he just in some email communication, they wanted to use it as their mission statement of either their department or their university. So how he thinks, I hope you capture that. I think I was one of the first, either the first or one of the first doctoral students of Charles Graham when he was fresh. I was here on his first day in the program, and I was one of the first people that I chose him as my dissertation supervisor. And the reason why I was so impressed by Jason, I'm so happy he's in this program. And who's in one of his classes right now? Okay, we only have one person in your class. That means you have a lot to look forward to. So when people write papers and submit them, who's written a paper and submitted it so far for a journal or something? So normally there's a couple of responses. They just reject you, or they say, you know, we may accept this, but we need significant revisions. Or they say, you know, we will accept this, but we need some minor revisions. So as a PhD student, I was amazed because Jason would submit papers and they'd just say, no, we accept this, no revisions, just please give us more. So even the chair at the time, he says, you gotta watch this guy. Because whatever he's writing, however he's writing, he's making it not only written so well, but so significant that editors just want to accept it as it is. Don't change a single thing. So I hope you can take a class from him because he's really not only a fantastic writer, but an out-of-the-box thinker and focusing on what actually really matters. So that's actually what I'm excited to talk about today is what matters. So you saw the topic, like how do you design inspiration and transformation? So what does that mean exactly? So you guys are in instructional psychology and technology. When you think about that, how do you design inspiration? I'll just throw that question out. How do you design something that's inspiring? How do you inspire someone? How do you design an experience or a moment that's inspirational? Yeah.
I think it's got to start
First of all,
with
what's your name?
John.
John, okay.
It's got to start with relevance. I think that's an important key.
That's good. I'm going to actually just write some of this stuff on the board here. Okay, so relevance. First of all, it should be relevant. Cool. Yeah. What's your name?
Becky.
Becky, okay.
I think that as a designer, you need to have passion for whatever you're designing, and as you have that passion, it spills over, and then that is inspiring.
Awesome. Passion. Becky, a passionate. High five. Okay, passion. What else? What makes something inspiring?
I think it has to have some kind of a challenge or invitation to act or to change your mindset.
I like that. Some kind of a challenge or invitation. Act or to change. Awesome. What was your name?
Royce.
Royce. Yeah. What's your name?
Matt.
Matt. Okay, just so far, John, Becky, Royce, Matt.
I think
it can be helpful if it shows them things that could be, shows them possibilities that they could experience, that they have the opportunity to have themselves.
So kind of like a vision of what's possible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Matt. Yeah.
I've got a couple from.
Okay, you got a couple?
Jane and Dennis.
Dennis? Let's see.
They're, so in the chat there.
Oh, I see in the chat. I'm supposed to read this.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, you earn trust and invite vulnerability. Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Trust and vulnerability. Trust and vulnerability. Let's see here. That was Zane. Thanks, Zane. Then let's try to capture their interest so they become motivated to engage further. So their interest, I think that kind of ties into relevance. Is it interesting to them? Super. Yeah. Jade?
Yeah, I think we have to consider more than the mind. Like a person has a spirit and a body and a social aspect to them too. So designing for more than just the mind.
I'll put something like holistic, or
Sure.
how would you say that? I'll just say more than mind right now, but I understand what you mean. Now, you're not just trying to pump information into the brain, but you're looking at them like there's a person with emotions, fears, hopes, dreams. What was your name?
Emily?
Emily?
Yeah, and something, jumping off what Kate said, before Dr. Gibbons retired, he gave some counsel about designing learning with emotion in mind, right? That we learn partially through our emotions.
Mhm.
And so if you can tap into that, tap into people's emotional state or get them motivated through their emotions, you know, not in a dark manipulative sense, you know, but knowing that you want to, you know, that you want to invite them to learn, but you're going to try to appeal to their emotions to invite them to learn.
Yeah, in fact, there's research that says when people are emotionally engaged, they learn better. And in marketing, they say people buy on emotion, and then they justify their buying decision on logic. But the reason they buy isn't logic or facts or reason. Super. What, actually, even a step before that, why do you care about, hey, Rick?
Hey.
Good to see you. He was one of the students at the same time as me as well. I think he graduated before me, but
I can't remember, but we were about the same cohort.
yeah. But
We sat in these seminars together.
yeah. Awesome. So why do you care about inspiration? Why is it even important? Why would you want someone to be inspired as a result of some instruction you create or design or some experience? Why would that be valuable? Yeah, what's your name?
Nathan.
Nathan, okay.
Really, I think that's our end goal with education is to help students find something that they're passionate about, something that they can use to make the world a better place. And so if we inspire them and help them find that thing, then we've succeeded.
Yeah. I guess I should have even said before thank you for that. I should have even said before I started this that these are questions I'm grappling with regularly. So I don't have all the answers for this stuff, but I'm very curious because I find that that unless you actually inspire someone, there's not lasting change. So someone made a distinction for me once between information, you can give people information, or there's transformation. So transformation is when there really is a shift inside of yourself, the way that you think about yourself or the world. Okay, so now I want to hear what's been one actual moment where you felt inspiration that led to a transformation in your own life. So it doesn't have to be related necessarily to educational context or environment, but I want to look at some of those and dissect them. So who would be courageous and share one experience they had where there was some real moment of inspiration that led to a transformation? Okay, Becky?
Good memory. I'll just share, so there's a TED Talk, speaking of vulnerability, by Brene Brown,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
who is amazing. And just listening to her research and her talking about shame and vulnerability and all of those things has been huge in my life because we moved a lot, and I'm not the greatest at being vulnerable. I'm really great at being detached and just doing my own thing. But listening to her kind of opened up that aspect of vulnerability and how incredibly important it is, and it inspired me to think, okay, you've got to be open and empathetic, and all of these things that I admire about other people and that inspire me, and that's through vulnerability is how you get to that aspect.
Thank you for that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because actually in preparation for today, I started to feel something inside of me where some of the moments where I saw inspiration and transformation are only at that moment of vulnerability. And so I thought, today I feel like I should share some of those that I haven't ever really shared publicly. And actually, I forgot to say at the very beginning, I have a feeling that before I came here today, part of the reason I was so excited, I felt like it was Christmas Eve, is because I feel like there's probably at least one person in here or more that I'm going to be connected with on a long-term basis. So either you'll be attracted to one of the projects that I'm working on, or something will be involved in working with each other in the long term. Everyone else, I know that as a result of today, if you pay attention, there will be something that you gain that will benefit your life. I felt that so clearly because of this aspect, and because I knew I was going to step into a space that I don't normally, which is sharing stories that I don't typically do. But because of this question and because of the context of this group, I felt called to share or to explore. So fantastic. So in that moment, what was it that provided inspiration? What was that? Let's hear from someone else. What do you think made inspiration in that moment in Becky's life? How about in the plaid, red and blue? Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. What's your name?
My name is Nick.
Nate?
Nick.
Nick. Okay, Nick. What was it? What was the ingredients that made for inspiration in that moment for Becky?
Becky, you were talking about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Just how I see it, and how, because I tie myself in as well to moments of vulnerability in my life. It gets to those moments where I feel like I'm pushed up against a wall. I have nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and so you just you just move, you just jump, you go for it. And it's like you're getting pushed to a cliff and you have nowhere to go but forward, you can't go back. And so what do? You just have to jump and see if you can fly. And so it's that aspect of, I don't have anywhere else to go, I am vulnerable, but I'll give it my best shot, that I think comes into play when we have those moments of vulnerability.
Okay, super. So you're speaking about vulnerability. Hey, Charles. Yeah, one of my heroes. Super. So, you're speaking about vulnerability, but actually, in that moment of sitting in front of a computer, just watching a video, there was a moment of inspiration, right? So let's see some of these things. So, was relevant. You had a high interest. Passionate. The person presenting was definitely passionate. What she was saying, she felt like it was meaningful. There was a challenge or invitation. It challenged you in some way. So you saw a vision of a possibility you didn't see existed before. Somehow she instilled trust. What was it that earned trust and invited vulnerability for sure? That was a great one to say. Thanks for that one. There was more. She saw you as more than mind, definitely. And she tapped into your emotions. Wow. So even on a video where she wasn't speaking to you directly, that probably millions of people have seen, this equated with inspiration for you. What transformation did you see in your life after that?
I'm a lot more self-aware in moments when, instead of being distant and disconnected, I kind of pay attention to when I can connect with an individual and share certain things that I wouldn't have ever thought of sharing before about me, and have that kind of empathy involved. It's made a huge difference in basically all of my relationships.
Yeah, awesome. Who else has seen that talk? Anyone? That talk? Highly recommended. Okay, what else? I want to hear from someone else, maybe someone back here that hasn't spoken, or just what's a moment where you felt was a moment of inspiration that led to transformation? Whether it was in an educational context or anything. We're just trying to dissect what creates those moments. Yeah, what's your name?
Danny,
Danny?
so when I came to the end of my
undergraduate career, I was in the English department doing technical writing. I enjoyed writing, the layout, the visual aspect of it, but I spent 6 months to a year looking for a job in the field, and I graduated from there in 2008, and that was just when the bottom fell out of the economy for a while, and there just wasn't anything. I went back to one of my professors and asked him kind of what options, if he knew of any, and that was the first time I'd ever heard. He talked to me about this department. Was the first time I'd ever even heard about instructional design or what it was. I'd considered being a teacher in the past, but had tried, and I don't do well in front of a group of people usually. So it didn't work. So my options hadn't panned out. But when I learned about this new field that I'd never considered before, and looked at it, and I saw the ties to education, sharing of knowledge, also the design aspect that I'd worked with and technical writing. That was just an eye-opener for me. It's a wonderful new opportunity.
Super. So it was a professor that was sharing with you this opportunity? Okay. So what do you think was it about that moment that created inspiration?
Well, there was certainly an interest. I was relevant. I was looking for something. There was also the aspect of trust to someone I'd worked with before, giving me advice. Tapped into not only his passions of things he was sharing with me as options. He had been one of my technical writing professors, but also my own. We shared that. We shared those passions. So multiple of those elements, and then there was a challenge of: do I continue with what I have, or do I take this chance, go back for more school, prolong, getting a viable career or things like that. I was married at the time, had our first baby, obviously needed some additional finances, not to be spending more. But
It's Danny? Okay, so let's look at this and see if there's anything else that we can add in here. Yeah. So relevant interest, yeah, he was definitely seeking, so that helped. The person who was speaking to you, I don't know if they felt passionate, but I think they were definitely caring about you. So I would add in here caring. I just think something about that. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that provides inspiration sometimes on the behalf of either the speaker, or even if whatever I say today doesn't matter, but I just really care about you, maybe there'll be some inspiration you get regardless of what I say. Okay, there's a challenge or invitation here. He showed you a vision of what was possible. Definitely he got your trust. I don't know about vulnerability in that one, but he saw you as more than mind, and I don't know how he tapped into your emotions. But was there any other elements anyone saw in that particular case that added into it? How about you, Dr. Yanchor? Just 1 second, Mikey. What do you think, how do you design inspiration?
I wish I knew. It depends on what you mean by inspiration. It depends on what you mean by design. So.
Yeah.
Depends on what you mean by you.
It really does. Collaborating, or doing this together? Am I the teacher who just unidirectionally decides all these decisions and experiences in advance, and then I impose them on my audience? And so, I mean, there's like a lot going on in here.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in there. Yeah. Okay, just 1 second. Emily?
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Let's just say, according to what you think design means, and what you think inspiration means, in this moment, how do you design inspiration?
Well, I don't think I really do it, but I try to give people opportunities where they can see something that's a way to engage themselves in something bigger than themselves that's energizing. So it's kind of an invitation more than a design. I guess you could design an invitation.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. To me, this is golden. I just want to applaud. But when he says, I don't think you can design inspiration. I don't think you
I
can.
finally gave the answer he was looking for.
Yeah. I think you can only invite it. I think you can only invite it. So you can create a circumstance or an experience that's fertile for it, but I don't think you can design it, in my opinion.
Good.
Yeah.
I like the way you think.
Yeah. Okay, Rick?
But I think you can make something more or less fertile. And that is a design piece of work. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been more or less inspired by some museum exhibits than others because the art is better. I was at the National Gallery in London. That was very inspiring. That's a much better museum than we get in other types of places. So I think you can have more or less fertile kinds of opportunities. And I think when we identify the kinds of things that maybe impede inspiration and the kinds of things that allow it to flow, then we can design for that a little bit better and say, you know, this may or may not work for this group of students, but I know that this is going to make it more likely that it might work.
Super, yeah, thank you, great. So that's the essence of this right now that I'm trying to discover is, how do you make it more fertile? Whatever you're doing so it has this potential. Emily, and then Becky after that.
Yeah, I was just kind of echoing what was said before. I think that there's that element of agency, that element of I buy in and I would like to be inspired. And so if your student doesn't have somewhat of a willing heart and willing mind, there's hardly anything you can do with them, either cognitively or inspirationally. I mean, somebody who's got a wall up, they're not wanting to be inspired, won't be, and that's just how it ends up working out. So I think your learner agency is a crucial factor, and so again, if you design things that entail having more choice in them or allow for that agency, you can give them opportunities to make choices where they can choose the inspiration, they can find it in their actions.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Do you choose to be inspired yourself? Have you chosen a moment where you say, now I'm going to be inspired?
Yeah, I am going to delve into inspirational text or music or other kinds of media that inspire me, and sometimes I sometimes I close myself off from inspiration intentionally as well. If I'm feeling overloaded or I just feel I'm having a bad day, I can sense in myself when I'm saying, you know, I'm unwilling to receive, but it's not that it's not there.
Yeah,
I think
so,
sometimes we're just not in a good place to get it.
yeah, sometimes you're more fertile for it as well. I don't know that I've ever chosen the moment of inspiration for myself, but sometimes maybe I'm more fertile to it, and sometimes the fertile part of it feels horrible. You know, I just need something. I'm just praying, God, give me some answer in this moment. But it's not like I'm searching for something. Okay, Becky, and then I want to make sure, Spencer, if there's anything, I don't want to leave out people who are participating online. So if you see something in particular, you be the voice of those people.
Gotcha.
Okay, Becky, and then after, I think I saw your hand as well.
I just wanted to add, based on Danny's story, there was a level of expertise in the person that was like giving the inspiration.
Yeah, so there's, yeah, I like that. That's a good thing to add in here too. And there's an expertise. Super. And then what was your name? Tanya, were you raising your hand?
Yes.
Okay, what you?
I think something else to take into consideration is the truth or the falseness of whatever is being taught. And I mean, you can inspire someone with something that isn't true, but it won't lead to transformation because they'll try it and it won't work. And so that moment where you first try isn't really transformation. Transformation is a really long process.
You guys are so awesome. So glad you shared that. Really, there should be a foundation of truth in there that's accessible and lasting. Yeah, it's fantastic. Amazing. Yeah, what's your name?
Enoch.
Enoch.
I think another element that I've noticed is the safety of the environment. I think that's connected with the vulnerability or willingness to be vulnerable. But I've definitely been in situations before where I've gone in not necessarily looking, well, I mean, I've gone in looking and definitely I have questions to that, but I've also gone in with a little bit of, resistance maybe to what might be, what whoever's designing the experience might be wanting to happen. But as they create that sense of trust and safety, both between you and them and between you and any other social aspect that you're in, it's kind of breaks down some of those walls and makes them more open to receiving that.
It's fantastic. That's a fantastic element of fertilizer. Charles, you have anything coming to you? Any inspiration coming to you? How do you help fertilize moments where there could be inspiration?
Well,
I think I agree a lot with what Steve was saying, that you have to set up the conditions. And the thing that I was thinking about is desire, and how to create a sense of desire in people, because I think Emily was kind of getting at this too, that desire, it almost seems like is a precursor to receiving inspiration.
I love that.
The other thing that I think is, when I think back in my own life, I think a lot of times inspiration is a gift from God.
Yeah.
And so it has to do with how we are, has to do with what God wants for us at the time, and maybe our willingness to recognize that.
I also put here, if you're asking for it too.
Yeah.
Now, who knows, who's ever heard of Dr. Dylan Inouye before? Yeah, so he was one of the professors that was here, and I remember he said so clearly, inspiration is always, God's Spirit's always here. Like, he always wants to give you guidance or inspiration. Like, there's radio signals in this room right now, but is anyone listening to the radio? So if you have a radio and tuned to that, you can hear it. What are those signals? But they're not, it's not like they're absent, they're here right now. So he made an emphasis on that is accessible anytime, if we just turn the tune. And he also made a big point of, how do you know if you're living the gospel? And so people are saying, do this command or this command. He's like, no, that's the input. He's like, the real output is if you have the Spirit in your life, you're feeling joy. So if you have that inspiration. So keeping the commandments is you just turn the key, but the engine that runs it is if you have this inspiration. Those are two things that I liked what you talked about. It's a gift. So being open to that gift. Jason?
So we're talking about inspiration, and it seems that the conversation is moving towards settling on inspiration in the sense of connection to the divine, a sense of self-contentment or of peace. I can imagine another conversation where we would start using inspiration in the sense of a feeling of energy or of power, or of excitement or being thrilled by something. Are those the same thing, or are they different things?
Great question. So, anyone have their own feeling on that? Yeah, Danny?
I'd certainly say that there are different reactions but I'd say it would depend on the situation and the individual. If I'm going through, if we're talking about on the divine end of things, if I'm going through a trial or suffering, the Lord may not necessarily send me an inspiration that's going to excite me. He may rather send me peace. It may depend more on our needs or what we're working on. In a work situation or in school, generally we're presented with problems that we're trying to debate or discuss solutions to. So when you start to find the answers to things, when you start to find the puzzle pieces, it's exciting. You start to feel the excitement because you're progressing towards whatever goal you have in mind, and that goal is usually associated with reward. A job, a published paper, a finished project. So that would lend more towards, again, exciting.
Yeah, super. So thank you, Danny. My take on it is that all good things come from divine connection. So whether it's excitement or peace or anything. So most of the contexts I speak in are not LDS. So I work a lot in Asia and Africa and Middle East, and lots of them aren't even Christian. But everyone, almost without fail, understands divine connection. And it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But for me, when I think of truth, yeah, there's just what is the truth that you need to know in this moment. It may not make you excited, or it may make you excited. But I think I don't see a differentiation in my own thoughts. Okay, so I wanted to share a specific, take you on a journey, because now you're here in this program, right? You don't know where it's going to lead, most of you. Who knows what they're going to do after they graduate? Okay, no, you do. Okay, great. So that's one person, so great. Fantastic. So I had no idea what I was going to do when I graduated, but one of the moments of inspiration came when I was actually called in to meet with Russ Osguthorpe. So originally he was in the program before he got called to be a mission president, and he was the chair of my dissertation before Charles was. So I went into his office and he says, you know, I haven't told very many people, but you need to know this because it will affect your educational path. I can't be the chair of your dissertation anymore. I was like, why? And he shared with me about getting this call to be a mission president. And then in that moment when he was sharing this, he shared something with me that absolutely altered my perception of reality and the path that I went on forever. So he said to me, he says, you know, I used to believe that you could plan out your life. That you could just be like, you know, get your Cubby planner out and say, here's my 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goal, and you just break it down into smaller goals and you just go along that path. And he says, but now I've realized that actually God has better plans for you than you can imagine for yourself. So the real goal is, how do you stay close to God and then just trust in that uncertainty? I was like, I just felt in me, wow, that is truth. There's something about that that's very powerful and altered how I approached even decisions that I was making about what to do next. So I want to share with you a couple of projects that thought led to. Yeah, please.
The comment from McHugh.
Oh, super. McHugh, in addition to feeling content or feeling excited, one could also use inspiration more or less synonymously with experiencing an epiphany. Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah, there's an epiphany that comes. So in that moment with Dr. Osguthorpe and myself with Russ, I just felt an epiphany, like, oh, this is really true. God, and then someone else said to me, so let's say, for instance, what is it, Matt?
Yeah.
Matt, do you know what your next thought is going to be?
It's gonna be, I don't know what my next thought's
No,
gonna
you don't even know your next thought. We don't know, none of us know our next thought. But there's a continuous stream of thoughts. So who knows what conversation you're going to have tonight, or what person you're going to meet tomorrow, or what situational events will occur that may totally change the trajectory of your life. So what's more important, to plan out your life or to stay close to someone who has a very good plan? You know? So I chose that. I really committed in myself, and I've been very imperfect at it. But even just that desire has led me to things that just totally surprise me. So I want to share with you some of them and see in your heart what inspires you, you know, about what your life may go towards. It. All of us are still in the path. So the first thing that happened was I had a conversation with one of my friends. Shortly after that, I had a conversation with one of my friends after I graduated. And he said that he felt so depressed, so discouraged. He says, I've been really thinking about taking my own life. You know, and this is one of my best friends. Every time we go to a party together or we're just talking with each other, he would make everyone laugh so hard. He was just, you would just never expect the depth of the sadness or the conflict going on inside of him. So when he opened up to me, I wanted to help him. So I said, well, let's say your life is gone, but now you still have one day, today. So what would you be excited to wake up and do? What would it be that if you knew you weren't going to fail, if you knew money was not an obstacle, what would you just naturally wake up and be excited to do? So that's a very powerful question. I hope you write down and ask yourself today or as soon as you can. If money was not an obstacle, resources were not an obstacle, and you could not fail, what would you just wake up and naturally be excited to do? So when I asked this question, we had one of the best conversations that I remember. In lunch, we were just talking, all of a sudden, all these sparks came out. And he says, you know, I'd really like to help. He talked about traveling, but specifically traveling with a purpose. You know, and then we said, you know, lots of people feel a lot of distrust. It was at the time where the president of the United States at the time, who was Bush, talked about axis of evil. So he said there are 4 countries which are the evil countries, you know. And we had a problem with that. We didn't think you can label a country evil. So we said, why don't we take evil and turn it around live, call this project Access Live, and help, and we'll actually go to those countries where people think are evil and show, you know, what are normal people they're like, and connect people in the US with people in these other countries. And so as a result of that, we created this project called Access Live. let's see here, if this plays. I don't know if those at a distance have this, but this is link number 1.
Our world is more connected than ever before. For example, the number of internet-enabled devices in 1984 was 1,000. Today, over 1 billion. Troubling events such as the global economic crisis, the swine flu epidemic, and the deteriorating state of the environment force awareness not only of our connection, but the increasing interdependence we have on each other. Events in one part of the world can have a drastic impact on us all, for the better or for the worse. At the same time, we are less connected than ever before. In almost every society, there's a startling increase in uncertainty, depression, loneliness, and fear. Almost 1 in 5 of all people in developed countries are currently experiencing depression, and 1 in 3 people report moderate or serious levels of loneliness or fear. There's also a sharp decrease in trust between different faiths, nationalities, and political ideologies. This fear, disconnection, and distrust serves to impede and paralyze intelligent collaborative action. The Access Live initiative is based on the following questions. What are the forces that can bring us together? And what are the forces that push us apart? What is the real cause of distrust and labeling, inhibiting work between those of different races, belief systems, and nationalities? What are the core needs, fears, and dreams we all have in common? What are the real differences that separate us? And how can those unique differences be utilized as strengths? What really is dangerous? What really is the enemy, and why? How can we foster a growing community, locally and globally, working to transform apathy into activism and fear into understanding? What is your part, your perspective, your fears, your strengths to share? Are you ready to face the future and take a step into the unknown? This is your world. This is your future. This is your life. Access Live.
I watched this for the first time after years. I'm like, oh my goodness, that applies today. You know, we made this in 2009. You know, but oh my goodness, this is like describes us now so well. What's happening in the U.S. and the world. So, I forgot to say that before coming here, I came up with 6 ingredients for how to create inspiration, or how to create an environment that would likely invite inspiration. One of them is, for me, is service, is caring. So in this moment, I cared about my friend. And actually, I'm willing to do things for others sometimes that invites inspiration that I wouldn't have in my own self. So how do you make it so people, either you care or people learn to care about each other that can invite those moments of inspiration is one question. So this led me to go teach at universities throughout the Middle East, Europe. I was in Africa, Asia. I coordinated a PhD program from the University of Stockholm. I opened it up for any PhD student to participate. And it was how do you use new media to create these intercultural collaboration so you can spark new innovation. So the idea that Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School came up with is innovation doesn't go when you go so far into one discipline, but it's at the cross-section of disciplines. So my hypothesis was, well, what about at the cross-section of faith, culture, ideologies? Maybe if we can create this safe space that allows for innovation to actually solve real problems in the world instead of just fighting each other. You know? So then I started teaching. I opened up this course for anyone. I thought maybe I'd get 8 PhD students to sign up. I had 80 students from 40 countries. And I got to teach it while I traveled on 4 different continents. So in that process, I thought, oh man, some things are working and some things are not working. In funding this project, a friend invited me to something called CEO Space. So me and my friend, who was the one that I had this original conversation, went to CEO Space. There I met a man by the name of Gary Malkin, who's a 7-time Emmy Award-winning composer and producer, and he founded something called Wisdom of the World. I was like, what's Wisdom of the World? And he had created an innovative way to touch people's hearts, where just in a couple minutes he can drop them into a space where their heart is open, so they're more fertile. You know, you're talking about agency in wanting to be inspired. So there's the saying you guys have heard, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? And then you've heard the follow-up, but you can salt the hay. So I saw he created a way to salt the hay. He created a way where even if you don't want to, all of a sudden you become interested. And how he did it, and if I had a little bit more time I'd share, but I'll send you these links, is he interviewed remarkable people, known or unknown. And he got them off of their script just to speak from that place of vulnerability. If this is the last message you're going to share with your child before he dies, what would you share? And when he got in the recording studio, that moment where he wanted to cry or got chills, he took that 3 to 5 minute clip and he put film score quality music to it. And then with that music, and we had like Disney cinematographers, we created these things called wisdom films. When I saw these, I was like, oh my goodness, more people need to know this exists, you know? So I created a project called 10 Days to Touch 10 Million. And the idea was in 10 days, during Thanksgiving and Christmas, we wanted as many people to watch these as possible. So that way, you know, during the holiday season where depression increases, suicide increases, maybe we could do something to stop that. So as a result of that project, we were interviewing someone remarkable on each of the days. I had famous people lined up to interview that were musicians, athletes, just different stuff. And one of my friends that I went to ask, can you introduce me to some of these famous people? She looked at my list and said, you know, actually, your message is so important, but these people don't match your message. I know their private life and it doesn't match. So who you want to talk to is this person and this person. So she introduced me to a person by the name of Dr. Pankaj Naram. So Dr. Pankaj Naram did something I never heard of before, which is called, he takes your pulse, so just from taking your pulse and understanding where is the differences in the beats of your pulse, he tells you what's happening in your mind, your body, and emotions. And then this comes from a lineage of people that are living to 125 or older that understand then what to do about it. What are the 6 instruments they use to alter it? So I'm thinking when she gives me this, I'm like, how am I supposed to interview this person? It sounds crazy. To me, it didn't make sense. It sounded strange. So I looked online, there wasn't a lot about him, but I was curious enough that I thought, okay, why don't I just interview him and see what it's like? So I interviewed him, had a fantastic interview, but I didn't understand a lot of what he was saying. At the end of the interview, I found out, well, during the interview, I found out he'd helped people like the Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama. He'd received an award for helping thousands of 9/11 firefighters and first responders. At the end of the interview, he said to me, he's like, Clint, I have a technology, I know it works. It goes back thousands of years. But the technology I don't understand is this one they're calling internet. So he said, do you think it can help me help more people? I says, I know you can reach more people, but I don't know what you're doing, I don't get it. So I know you can reach more people, but that's what I know. He says, well, come to India, and I'll show you what I'm doing. I wasn't so interested in going to India because I was already traveling a lot of other places and working with a European Union funded project that was taking me so many places. So then I met a girl who was very interested in Ayurveda. Who's heard of Ayurveda before? Okay, so Ayurveda is the medical system that goes back thousands and thousands of years, 7,000 years in the Himalayas in India. And it translated means the science of life. So this girl I had a crush on. So I was interested in what she was interested in. I was like, oh, this sounds like that person that I interviewed. And I said, have you ever heard of this person? She's like, oh my goodness, he's one of the best in the world. I was like, would you like to meet him? I can introduce you. She's like, yeah, I'd like to. So that was inspiration for me to go to India and meet with this guy. So then I scheduled my trip. I went to India. I saw stuff there that I couldn't make sense of. People with all kinds of chronic and acute health challenges that we can't solve here in the West with our best technology. And I thought maybe this is placebo effect, which is great. Placebo is awesome. That you believe you're going to get better and you get better. Is that not cool? So placebo is cool, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's cool. He created this whole little system. Then I came home. When I came home, my dad called me on the phone. And my dad said, hey, listen, I need to meet with you in my office. Can we schedule an appointment? And I was like, you're my dad. Why don't we just talk? He's like, no, this is really important. So I knew something was off. I went to his office. He opened the door, we sat, I was sitting on one chair, he was sitting here next to his desk, and it took him a long time to look up. Finally, when he looked up, he says, you know, I haven't told your brothers or sisters and I haven't told your mom, but I don't think I'm going to live for another week. And I just want someone to know where the loose ends are so your mom doesn't have to worry about it. So in that moment, everything changed for me. Whatever I thought was important changed, it shifted. And I said, what are you doing? What's happening? He says he's in so much pain sometimes, it feels like someone threw his body against the wall. I says, well, what's your doctor say? He says, one doctor, I have 4 doctors. I visited with the 4 best doctors in Utah, and they don't know what to do. 2 of the doctors this month says they don't know what else to do for me. He was on 12 medications, depression was high. For the first time I saw my dad discouraged. So I says, I just met this master healer, and honestly, I don't know if he can help you, but can we try? And my dad said, I don't think so. That doesn't sound interesting to me. You know, he looked more discouraged. He says, I've already tried reflexology, homeopathy, all this stuff. It doesn't work. Just pay attention to where my passwords are. So I listened, and then I said, you know, for Father's Day, I'm flying you to meet this man. So he says, well, at least it can't hurt. So we looked on the schedule. This healer was flying to California. So I scheduled this appointment. We flew there. The room was packed full of people. There was like 50 people there waiting. And we saw people go in and come out in like 3 to 5 minutes. So my dad, I could see him in pain, not really wanting to be there, going in this room. 3 minutes later, he came out and he was standing straight and he had a look of hope in his eyes. I said, Papa, what happened? He says, even if the 4 doctors were in the same room, which never happens, they couldn't have described exactly what's happening in my body, my mind, and emotions. So it gave him faith to try. So 6 months later, he called me into his office. He says, I have another problem. I don't know what to do with all these medications. He went from 12 medications to 1 in 6 months. No more cholesterol, diabetes, blood pressure, no more sleeping pills. So I went to this healer and I says, more people need to know this is possible. How can I help? And he laughed. He says, you know, I need help because I can't see more people per day. But your mind is too crowded. So he didn't let me. He says, first you have to do 2 things. And one of them was he made me go for a period of 10 days of silence. Life-changing. I'm giving you the very short version because I want you to understand these different points. If there's one thing you do in your life, and there's only one thing you remember from this, go for a period of silence. There's a scripture that says, be still and know that I am God. I think it's inevitable you go for that stillness, you actually discover. That same year I went for silence, I was in 40 different countries. I had my PhD from this program. I had been winning awards, but I didn't even know who I was until I went to that silence. It was like for the first time I discovered, oh, this is who I am? This is who God is? The second thing he told me to do was work with my dad. My dad was working on a project called Choice Skills, which is helping kids. He calls it the missing piece in education. We teach kids what to think, but we don't teach them how to think. How do you make good choices? He came up with 6 questions you could ask of any idea or choice to know if it's a good idea. I felt this big conflict inside of me as I was working with him, helping him to publish his life's work. This was the second thing he asked me to do. My dad, he says, can you help me publish this book? Because I knew I had made so many bad choices. So I got to the point where I finally said to my dad, I said, you know, I don't feel comfortable anymore helping people make good choices because I've made so many bad choices. And I felt that moment of vulnerability that you talked about, where I said, I'm just going to be naked and tell my dad the worst things I've ever done. So I remember that moment, sitting in front of him, and just got to the point where I was like, can I share this with him? And I did. I just said, this is the worst thing that I feel like I've ever done. And I remember the tears coming down his cheeks. And I thought, I was bracing myself for rejection. And I remember he just said to me, Clint, you don't realize you're one of the most amazing people that I've ever met. And he gave me a blessing. And I remembered that feeling of, oh my goodness, whatever energy I was devoting towards hiding who I was and trying to pretend I was someone else melted away. And then I had a different possibility. So I went back to this healer and I said, now can I help you? He's like, yeah, now you can help me. He says, please help me. So for the last 5 years, in addition to working at the universities that I've been working at, I've been traveling with him, and I've been with him in more than 100 cities in 15 different countries and documented more than 5,000 cases of people who have had miracle-like experiences like my father. To him, it's not a miracle, it's a science. But I'm about to publish a book called Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer, a Western skeptic, an Eastern master, and life's greatest lessons. And at the same time, the whole challenge is, how do you create inspiration? Because it's such a different thing than we're used to in the West. So as I'm presenting this to audiences, you have to create a moment in which they're open to doing something that's not a quick fix. This solution takes time. So you have to give someone enough inspiration, they'll do something for long enough that they see a change. Okay, so now my time is up, but I just want to share with you the ingredients in these different experiences and what it's led me to, what I think creates inspiration, or what creates that moment that invites it. One is, I think if you're coming, like Russ Osgothorpe, he built faith in me, faith in myself, and faith in my ability to trust a God in a very uncertain future more than my own wisdom. Second is coming from service. All those things that happened to me were only because I tried to help someone else. It led me to the best things that I couldn't have even planned for myself. The third thing is this whole music. I just love what Gary does with Wisdom of the World. So we're about to launch the new website with Wisdom of the World. recorded so many things and have so much potential with this. So that's another project where definitely has, it's what are the best things that exist on the planet, and how can more people benefit from them? And how do you get them to actually pay attention? How do you salt the hay? And one of the ways I think is through these, we call them mediaceuticals. So even we've done studies where painkillers reduce your pain, this reduces your pain more because it brings a different possibility. So music, and then story. If you tell a story that opens up people's hearts, it's more likely they're going to be inspired, especially if it's one coming from your heart. Silence, I think, gives a big possibility. Silence and stillness, you allow for that. And then the last is love. So in addition to, a lot of you have talked about these things where, yeah, so how do you design inspiration that leads to transformation? I'm learning myself. I'm learning how do I do this, and how do I, especially in the uncertainty that we're all facing in this country and on this planet, how do we latch on to what is true and then help bring it so people can go from that fear to that faith, from that uncertainty to that hope. And yeah, I don't really have a good ending, but thank you for letting me be with you. And thank you also for the people at a distance as well. I hope there was something beneficial. I'm going to give my email address to Jason. So if anyone feels inspired to connect on any of these projects or any questions or any dialogue further, I'm more than happy to connect with you on that level. But thank you so much.